Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! In the stillness of night, a solitary figure glided through the shadows of their residence, the sound of their footsteps muffled by practice. Every creak in the floor and every crevice in the walls was well known, allowing them to navigate with stealth. Within the sanctuary of the bedroom, a hidden treasure lay behind a seemingly innocuous closet. With a gentle push, a concealed door swung open, revealing a spectrum of colors. Among the vibrant display hung a symphony of dresses, each with its own unique story, carefully curated over time. Their hand, with an air of anticipation, caressed the luxurious fabrics, pausing at a particular red garment that seemed to pulsate under the subdued light. Its online order, carefully executed, had arrived at its secret destination. The fabric felt cool and smooth, promising transformation. For 27 years, this ritual had remained private, sacred. An hour stolen here, an evening there, moments carved out of a life constructed around other people's expectations. The figure before the mirror barely resembled the person colleagues and family members knew as Luca Bennett, mid-level manager at a financial consulting firm. That Luca wore gray suits and kept auburn hair neatly trimmed, never letting it grow past the ears. That Luca spoke in a measured, deliberately lowered voice and maintained a careful distance from everyone. This version, the one now slipping into the red dress, was different. This version let the auburn hair, now grown just past the shoulders through months of careful trimming to maintain a professional appearance that wouldn't raise questions, fall naturally around a face transformed by subtle makeup techniques perfected through years of practice. The dress fit perfectly, hugging the waist that had been carefully maintained through diet and exercise. Black stilettos completed the look, adding height and changing posture and gait. The mirror reflected back not Luca, but someone far closer to the truth. The woman who had always existed behind the careful armor of masculinity. 45 years, came the whispered words to the empty room. 45 years is long enough. The decision hadn't been made that night, or even that month. It had been forming for decades, crystallizing slowly until it became impossible to ignore. Earlier that day, an appointment had been made with a specialist, a doctor who understood people like her, people whose bodies and social identities didn't align with who they really were. The red dress would hang back in its secret place for now, but not for much longer. Soon, there would be no need for hiding, for secret compartments, for stolen moments. Soon, Maya would step into the light. The physical changes will come gradually, Dr. Winters explained, reviewing the hormone therapy protocol. Her office was warmly lit, decorated with plants and abstract art in soothing colors. Everyone's body responds differently, but you should start noticing subtle shifts within a few months. Maya nodded, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. She'd worn her most androgynous outfit to the appointment, dark jeans and a loose burgundy sweater that didn't emphasize any particular gender. Her auburn hair was pulled back into a small ponytail, a style she'd been able to adopt recently as its length increased. What about the... She paused, searching for words. Even now, after all her research, talking about this out loud felt surreal. The emotional effects? Dr. Winters smiled. Also variable. Some patients report mood fluctuations similar to puberty, which makes sense. You're essentially going through a second one. Others experience a profound sense of relief or alignment. There's no predicting exactly how you'll respond. I understand. Maya's voice was soft but firm. I'm ready. I've been ready for decades. Later that evening, Maya stood in her bathroom, staring at the small pill in her palm. Such a tiny thing to carry so much significance. The first step of many on a journey she'd been preparing for her entire life. She swallowed it with a sip of water, then looked at her reflection. The face looking back was still largely the one the world recognized as Luca, though the longer hair and carefully shaped eyebrows had already begun softening its appearance.
Hello, Maya,
she whispered to her reflection. It wasn't the first time she'd spoken her true name aloud, but it was the first time she'd done so not as part of a secret ritual, but as the beginning of a new reality. 3 months passed. Maya sat in Dr. Winters' office for her follow-up, wearing dark slacks and a cream-colored blouse that subtly accommodated her developing breasts. The changes were still minor enough that loose clothing could disguise them, but she could feel the difference. Your blood work looks good, Dr. Winters said, studying the results. How are you feeling? Maya thought about it. Different. Better.
It's hard to explain.
She searched for words to encompass the transformation happening not just in her body, but in her mind. There's this quietness I've never experienced before.
Quietness,
Dr. Winters prompted.
My whole life there's been this constant noise in my head, like static or an argument that never stops. I didn't even recognize it as abnormal because it was always there.
Maya's fingers traced patterns on the arm of her chair. Now there are moments when it's just gone. When I feel completely present in my body instead of hovering somewhere outside it. Dr. Winters nodded.
That sounds like a reduction in gender dysphoria. Many patients report similar experiences. A lessening of anxiety they didn't even recognize as anxiety because they'd never known anything different.
Exactly. Maya smiled. I keep catching myself waiting for the noise to come back, but it doesn't. Or at least, not with the same intensity. And socially? How's the transition progressing there? Maya's smile faded slightly. Slower. I've told my closest friend. She was supportive but confused. At work, I'm still presenting as before. I'm not ready for that conversation yet. What Maya didn't mention was how often she now wore her collection of dresses at home. Not as part of a secretive ritual, but simply as clothing, her clothing, worn while cooking dinner or reading a book or watching television. The red dresses and black stilettos no longer lived behind a false wall, but hung prominently in her closet. She also didn't mention the new purchases, clothes that weren't part of the hidden collection, but bought specifically for Maya, not for the person she had pretended to be. Simple items, jeans cut for women, soft sweaters, a pair of low-heeled boots. Clothes she could potentially wear in public without drawing immediate attention, allowing her to begin the gradual shift in her presentation. Take your time, Dr. Winters advised. This isn't a race. Some people transition socially before starting medical interventions. Others wait until the physical changes are well underway. There's no right way to do this. I know. It's just... Maya hesitated. There's a family reunion coming up in 2 months. I've been thinking about using it as an opportunity to be myself publicly for the first time.
That's a significant step. How do you think your family will respond?
Maya stared out the window. I honestly don't know. The navy blue A-line dress hung on the back of Maya's bedroom door. She'd purchased it specifically for the reunion, conservative enough not to seem provocative, but undeniably feminine. The matching pumps sat beneath it, their sensible 2-inch heels a compromise between comfort and style. Maya studied her reflection as she applied mascara. 6 months of hormone therapy had softened her features and redistributed some of her body fat, creating subtle curves that the dress enhanced. Her auburn hair now reached past her shoulders, styled in loose waves that framed her face. At 45, she didn't have the advantage of youth that some transgender women did, but she had decades of careful skincare routines and makeup practice. The face looking back at her wasn't a perfect female version of her former self, but it was unmistakably Maya, the person she had always been beneath the surface. "You can do this," she told her reflection. "You've been preparing for this moment your entire life." The drive to her cousin's house, where the reunion was being held, took 45 minutes. Maya spent it alternating between nervous silence and practicing what she might say when the inevitable questions came. She'd rehearsed explanations, prepared for reactions ranging from acceptance to rejection, but nothing could fully prepare her for the reality. She parked on the street, half a block from the house. Through the windshield, she could see relatives milling about on the front lawn. Some she recognized immediately, and others who had changed since she'd last seen them. For a moment, she considered driving away. She could invent an excuse later: a sudden illness, car trouble, a work emergency. Instead, she stepped out of the car, smoothed her navy dress, and began walking toward the gathering. The click of her heels on the sidewalk felt impossibly loud. Her cousin Thomas spotted her first, his brow furrowing in confusion as he tried to place the auburn-haired woman approaching his house. Recognition dawned slowly, followed by shock.
"Luca?"
he called, uncertainty making it a question. Conversations nearby halted. Heads turned. Maya continued walking until she stood at the edge of the gathering, acutely aware of every eye upon her. "Hello, Thomas," she said, her voice practiced to its higher, feminine register. "Actually, I go by Maya now." The silence stretched, broken finally by her Aunt Eleanor's sharp intake of breath. "What on earth is this supposed to be?" Maya had prepared for this question, had rehearsed her answer dozens of times, but the words still stuck in her throat momentarily. "This is me," she finally said. "The real me. I'm transgender and I've begun transitioning." More silence. Then the murmurs started, quiet at first, then growing louder.
"Is this some kind of joke?"
Uncle Robert demanded. "No joke," Maya replied steadily. "I've been living with gender dysphoria my entire life. 6 months ago, I started hormone therapy."
"You can't be serious,"
Thomas said, taking a step back as if her condition might be contagious. "You're a 45-year-old man, for God's sake." "I'm a 45-year-old woman," Maya corrected gently. "I always have been. I just couldn't admit it before, not even to myself." Her cousin Melissa approached cautiously. "Maya?" She tested the name, seemingly less shocked than the others. "This is unexpected." Maya nodded. "I know. I'm sorry I didn't give everyone more warning. I just thought it would be easier to explain in person." "Easier?" Eleanor's voice rose sharply. "You think showing up in a dress is easier than picking up a phone?" Before Maya could respond, her Uncle Robert cut in. "I think you should leave. This is a family gathering, and you're making everyone uncomfortable." Maya looked around at the faces of her relatives, some avoiding her gaze, others staring with open hostility or confusion. Only Melissa showed anything resembling acceptance, and even she seemed uncertain. "I am family," Maya said quietly. "The same person you've known all these years. Just
authentic now.
The person we knew wouldn't have pulled a stunt like this,
Robert insisted.
If you're going through some kind of crisis,
get help. Don't drag it into a family event. Maya felt a strange calmness descend over her. She'd anticipated rejection as a possibility, had prepared herself for it, but the reality still stung. Yet underneath the pain was something else, a certainty she'd never felt before. I understand this is difficult to accept, she said. I hope someday you'll be willing to know the real me. Until then, she nodded toward Melissa. It was good to see you, at least. With that, she turned and walked back to her car, the navy dress swishing gently around her knees. Behind her, she could hear the murmurs rise again, could imagine the conversations that would follow her departure. But for the first time in her life, the weight of others' opinions didn't crush her. In the car, she allowed herself a moment of grief, not for the loss of her family's acceptance. That might come with time, or it might not, but for the decades spent hiding, for the fear that had kept her from living authentically until now. Then she dried her eyes, careful not to smudge her mascara, and drove home to her house full of dresses that no longer needed to hide. The months that followed brought changes Maya hadn't anticipated. The continuing physical transformations from hormone therapy were expected. The softening of her skin, the subtle reshaping of her face, the development of more pronounced curves. What surprised her were the shifts in how she experienced the world. Colors seemed more vivid. Food tasted different. Not necessarily better or worse, just altered in ways she couldn't have predicted. And, most unexpectedly, her perception of attraction changed. Before transition, Maya had dated women exclusively, though relationships had always been difficult, fraught with a disconnection she couldn't articulate. Now, she found herself noticing men in a way she never had before. Is that normal? She asked Dr. Winters during a checkup. For sexuality to shift during transition?
It happens to some people,
the doctor confirmed.
Hormones can influence attraction to some degree, but more often, I think it's about authenticity. When you're living as your true self, you're more open to authentic attraction too.
Maya considered this. It's disorienting, like learning to navigate with a new compass.
Give yourself time,
Dr. Winters advised.
There's no rush to define your sexuality any more than there was a rush to define your gender.
Outside the doctor's office, Maya had begun living openly as herself. She'd left her job at the financial consulting firm. The environment had proven too resistant to her transition, and found a position at a smaller company with a reputation for inclusivity. Her new colleagues had only known her as Maya, which simplified things considerably. Her wardrobe had expanded beyond the secret collection of cocktail dresses to include everyday clothes for her new life. The red dresses remained, but they were now joined by practical items for work, casual wear for weekends, exercise clothes for the yoga classes she'd started taking. And then there were the new special occasion pieces, particularly the emerald green evening gown that hung in her closet, tags still attached, waiting for the right moment. That moment arrived in the form of an invitation to a charity gala hosted by her new company. Maya stood before her mirror, studying the way the emerald gown highlighted her developing figure. The hormone therapy had redistributed enough of her body fat to create subtle curves that the dress's tailoring enhanced. The gown's design was elegant without being revealing, a high neckline, but a fitted silhouette with fabric that draped smoothly over her hips. She'd always avoided green before transition, feeling it clashed with her auburn hair, but now the rich emerald tone seemed to complement rather than compete with her coloring. Different perspective, different aesthetic, she murmured to her reflection, adjusting the pendant necklace that completed the look.
The gala was held at a downtown hotel, its ballroom transformed with tasteful decorations and subtle lighting. Maya arrived alone, but soon found herself in conversation with colleagues who knew her only as the capable analyst who had joined their team a few months earlier.
Maya, you look stunning, her department head commented. That color is perfect on you.
Thank you, she replied, accepting the compliment with a smile that came more naturally these days. I'm still finding my style.
Well, you've clearly found it tonight.
Throughout the evening, Maya navigated the social dynamics with growing confidence. The anxiety that had always plagued her at such events, the feeling of playing a role she hadn't been properly cast for, was gone. In its place was a new awareness of how it felt to move through the world as herself.
Excuse me,
a voice interrupted her thoughts.
I don't think we've met. I'm Daniel Mercer from the West Coast office.
Maya turned to find herself face to face with a man about her age, his dark hair silvering at the temples. He extended his hand, and she took it, noticing the warmth of his grip.
Maya Bennett,
she replied, analyst in the financial projections department.
Ah, so you're the one Alicia has been raving about. She says you've revolutionized their forecasting models.
Maya felt a flush of pleasure at the acknowledgement of her work. Hardly revolutionized, just applied some techniques from my previous position.
Don't minimize your contributions,
Daniel said with a smile. It's refreshing to hear about someone bringing new perspectives to established processes. Their conversation flowed easily from work to broader topics. Daniel was visiting from the San Francisco office for quarterly meetings, he explained. He'd been with the company for 15 years and had seen it grow from a small regional firm to its current national presence.
And what brought you to join us?
He asked. Alicia mentioned you came from Levinson Financial? That's quite a shift. Maya hesitated. This was the moment where she usually had to decide how much to share. At work, most people knew she was transgender. She hadn't hidden it, but it wasn't something she led with in introductions. I was ready for a change, she said simply. Levinson's culture wasn't conducive to authenticity. Daniel nodded thoughtfully.
I understand. Corporate culture can be stifling in various ways.
Something in his tone suggested he might have experienced his own struggles with authenticity, though Maya didn't press for details. Would you like to continue this conversation over a drink? He asked, gesturing toward the bar area where high tables offered a quieter space for discussion. Maya felt a flutter of nervousness that had nothing to do with gender dysphoria and everything to do with attraction. I'd like that, she said. They found a table somewhat removed from the main crowd. Daniel ordered a scotch. Maya chose a glass of Cabernet. Their conversation resumed, touching on books they'd read recently, travel experiences, their respective views on the company's future direction. I hope this isn't too forward, Daniel said during a pause in the conversation. But I'm only in town until Sunday. Would you be interested in dinner tomorrow night? There's a restaurant I've been wanting to try near the harbor. Maya's pulse quickened. Was this a date? Or simply a professional connection? The new territory of navigating social interactions as her authentic self still occasionally left her uncertain. I'd enjoy that, she answered, deciding that his intentions didn't need to be categorized immediately. Just to clarify, are you suggesting a business dinner or... Daniel smiled. Definitely not business. Unless you'd prefer to keep it professional. No, Maya said, returning his smile. I think I'd prefer to leave work discussions for the office. As they exchanged numbers and agreed on a time to meet, Maya felt a sense of possibility open before her.
Not just the potential of a connection with Daniel that might or might not develop into anything significant, but the broader potential of a life lived authentically, with all the complex, messy, wonderful experiences that entailed. The emerald gown, she decided, had been an excellent investment. Dinner with Daniel led to another meeting when he returned to town the following month, which led to weekend visits between their respective cities, which eventually led to Daniel requesting a transfer to the office where Maya worked. "Are you sure about this?" Maya asked when he told her his plans. They were walking along the harbor, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows. "Moving across the country is a big step." "I'm sure about you," Daniel replied, taking her hand. "The rest is logistics." Their relationship had evolved slowly, each step taken with careful consideration. Maya had shared her full story early on, wanting no misunderstandings. Daniel had listened without judgment, asking thoughtful questions, showing genuine interest in understanding her experience.
"I've dated women who weren't transgender and men who were," he explained when she expressed surprise at his acceptance. "Gender is far less interesting to me than the person expressing it." Now, a year after their first meeting, Maya stood in her bedroom preparing for another family reunion. This one was smaller, just her parents and siblings, gathering at her brother Michael's home to celebrate their father's 70th birthday. Unlike the previous reunion, this one came with advance notice. Maya had called each family member individually, explaining her transition, answering questions, giving them time to process before seeing her in person. The responses had varied. Her mother had cried, but promised to try to understand. Her father had been mostly silent. Her sister had asked practical questions about hormone therapy. Her brother had expressed confusion, but not rejection. "Are you nervous?" Daniel asked, adjusting his tie as he watched her apply her makeup. "Terrified," Maya admitted. "But also ready. It's time." She wore a simple burgundy wrap dress for the occasion, casual enough for a family dinner, but feminine enough to affirm her identity. Her auburn hair was styled in a sleek bob that had become her signature look, framing her face in a way that emphasized her features. "You look beautiful," Daniel said, coming to stand behind her. "And more importantly, you look like yourself." Maya studied their reflection in the mirror, her in the burgundy dress, him in charcoal slacks and a blue button-down shirt. They looked like any middle-aged couple preparing for a social engagement, nothing remarkable except for the contentment evident in their expressions. "I never thought I'd have this," she said quietly. "Any of it. The right body, the right clothes, the right relationship. I spent so many decades convinced I'd always be living a half-life." Daniel rested his hands on her shoulders. "Yet here you are, living fully." The drive to Michael's house was quiet, Maya mentally rehearsing potential conversations while Daniel occasionally offered reassurances. They arrived to find everyone already there, cars lined up in the driveway. "Remember," Daniel said as they approached the front door, "whatever happens, you're not alone anymore." Michael answered their knock, his expression a mixture of nervousness and determination. "Maya," he said, using her name deliberately, though she could tell it still felt strange in his mouth. "And you must be Daniel. Come in." The living room fell silent as they entered. Maya saw recognition dawn on her family members' faces. Not the shock of the previous reunion, but a more measured realization as they connected this woman with the person they had known before. Her mother rose first, crossing the room hesitantly. "Maya," she said,
testing the name just as Michael had. She reached out, touching her daughter's face gently. "You look at peace."
"I am, Mom,"
Maya replied, her voice steady despite the emotion threatening to overwhelm her.
"For the first time in my life."
Her father remained seated, watching the interaction with an unreadable expression. Her sister approached next, giving her an awkward but genuine hug.
"The dress is nice,"
she offered.
"Burgundy suits you."
"Thank you," Maya said, grateful for the simple, normalizing comment. Dinner was a strange mix of ordinary family conversation and careful navigation around Maya's transition. Her father spoke little, addressing his questions and comments to Daniel rather than directly to Maya. Her mother tried too hard, repeatedly using Maya's name in a way that called attention to the effort she was making. "So, you've known our
Maya for about a year?"
her father finally asked Daniel directly.
"Yes, sir,"
Daniel replied.
"We met at a company event shortly after she joined the firm." "And you're comfortable with all this?"
The question held a weight of disbelief. Daniel met the older man's gaze steadily.
"I'm comfortable with Maya being exactly who she is. She's an extraordinary woman."
Her father looked away, absorbing this. Then, to Maya's surprise, he turned toward her.
"Your mother showed me some research she's been doing about transgender people, the medical aspects."
Maya nodded, uncertain where this was heading.
"I don't understand it,"
he continued honestly.
"I don't know if I can, but—"
He paused, seemingly struggling with his words.
"But you're still my child, and you seem better, happier than I can remember seeing you in a very long time."
The admission wasn't acceptance, not fully, but it was an opening, a willingness to try that Maya hadn't expected.
"I am happier, Dad,"
she confirmed. "This is who I've always been, just hidden." He nodded slowly.
"I'm trying to see that. Give me time."
"All the time you need,"
Maya promised. Later, as they prepared to leave, her mother pulled her aside.
"Will you come for dinner next weekend? Just you and me? I'd like to get to know my daughter better."
Maya felt tears threatening to spill.
"I'd like that very much."
The goodbyes were awkward but hopeful, a family finding its way toward a new configuration, none of them certain of the path, but all of them, at least, willing to begin the journey. In the car, Daniel waited until they were halfway home before asking, "How are you feeling?" Maya considered the question carefully.
"Relieved, grateful, a little sad for all the years lost.
But mostly hopeful."
"That sounds about right,"
he agreed, reaching for her hand. Back at home, Maya hung the burgundy dress in her closet beside the emerald gown, the navy dress, and the collection of red cocktail dresses that had once been her only connection to her true self. Now they were simply clothes, beautiful clothes that she enjoyed wearing, but no longer vessels for a secret identity. The secret was out. The woman within fully emerged. At 46, Maya Bennett was finally beginning the life she had always been meant to live, surrounded by a growing circle of people who knew and accepted her completely. She ran her hand along the row of dresses, remembering the decades of hiding, of stolen moments, of fear and shame and longing. Then she closed the closet door and turned toward Daniel, toward the future, toward the infinite possibilities that authenticity had opened before her. After all those years of darkness, Maya stepped fully into the light.
Thanks for watching, my girlies. Be sure to check out Patreon for more.